Welcome back to the Fusion 360 tutorials. In this video, I'm going to continue on from where we left off in the previous video and continue adding features to our current model. So what we see in the graphics area is the L-shaped extrusion that we created in the last video. What I'm going to do is add more to this model by adding some features. So the first thing I'm going to do is go up and create a sketch because we need another sketch profile every time we add our features. So up to the top menu, I'm going to select Create Sketch. And once again, it's going to ask for a plane to sketch on. I'm not going to select these default XYZ planes. I'm going to select this top surface. So we always have to select a plane to sketch on. So I'm going to select that top surface and it will automatically go to that orthographic 2D view of that surface I'm going to sketch on. I'm going to go up and select my line command and I'm going to sketch another L. I could sketch this roughly out in space, or I can actually sketch items or lines right onto this and it will constrain it to this. So you can see it is snapping onto that point. And I'm roughly going to sketch another L shape on here. And it is shaded blue, so you know that my profile is closed. And I can finish that off by right-clicking and selecting OK. You will see that there have been some constraints added to this. And we can, if we wanted to, we could select these constraints and we could right click and we could delete a constraint. Sometimes we've over constrained items and we actually need to delete some constraints. So right now this object is a closed object. We can tell by the shades, and now we're going to add some dimensions to this. So if I go up to my dimension command, in the toolbar up here, select this line. We don't need to select the 2 points. We can just select the line, and that is 2.5 inches. And we will select the dimension here, and we're going to make this dimension 2.5 as well. So when I select this, I can type in 2.5, or I can just go up to this dimension here and select that dimension, which is 2.5. So that would always be equal to that. But that would be only in the case that we always want that to be equal. So I am going to just change this manually to 2.5. I will add the width of the bottom shape here is 0.75. And one more dimension left. And you can see that all these black lines means they are constrained, they are fixed. The only one we have left is this blue line here, and that is because we don't have a width dimension on there. So if I put that dimension in there and type in 0.75, now the object is surrounded by black lines, which means it is fully constrained. Another option on here, depending on your design intent, this 2.5 inch dimension. We don't necessarily have to duplicate that dimension because it is the same width as this line here. So we do have other options. So I could delete this option or delete that dimension, and I could select my collinear constraint. So this would be 2 lines in line. So I could select that collinear constraint, select that line, and I want it in line with this one. So if I select that line, you will notice the collinear constraint pops up here, and it is once again surrounded in black solid lines, which means it is fully constrained. At this point, we are going to finish our sketch, and we can look at this isometrically, and we can see that that has been drawn in the right spot or the right direction or the right plane. Now we want to create an extrusion out of this, so we're going to go up to our menu up here, select extrude, and we're going to select this surface area here. We could drag it down, up and down again. We know that it's going to be 2.5 inches downwards. I could put in this dimension of 2.5, negative 2.5, and it is going to be the exact same length as the other shape. The other option we have is selecting that extrude and that surface area. When we have our directions that we can control, or distance, we can select to an object. So I can select this to an object option, and I'm going to rotate this around and select this bottom surface, and now that will go right down to that same bottom surface, and I can select OK. So I did not have to put that 2.5 dimension in there, which means that 2.5 is not going to show up in the drawing, but you will be able to tell in the technical drawing that those are in line. So if we look down at our timeline down here, we will see this extrusion has been added to our timeline as well as the sketch. So we could back that up and we could do more editing at this point, and we would not have to worry about it being referenced by this other geometry. So we've seen and have demonstrated adding materials. Now going to demonstrate removing materials. So I'm going to create another sketch. I'm going to select my sketch, create sketch. I'm going to select this surface here, and looking at the 2D orthographic view, I am going to select a circle. So going to select a circle. I'm going to randomly put it on here. Remember, we can sketch roughly if we want. And then we're going to add some dimensions to that. So I'm going to put this dimension, vertical dimension, at 1.25. And I'm going to add a horizontal dimension of 0.75. Notice I'm keeping my dimensions off of the object. And it's still blue, which means I have not fully constrained this. If you run into a situation like this, sometimes you might just want to start dragging some of your sketches and see what happens. So I can see that this is actually moving. If it was constrained, it's not moving. Or if it was moving, that means it's not constrained. So I can't move this around. The only thing that's moving on here is this diameter, which means I need to dimension that diameter. So if I go up and select my diameter dimension and select that, put in a diameter of 0.75, now I have my circle, my profile sketch, and it is showing down here in my timeline. I just want to go up and I want to go to my solid and do an extrude. So I'm going to select my profile sketch here, and if I just drag this, it's actually going to create a solid. So we don't really want a solid, we want it to be a hole. So selecting our extrude, we can actually use these options here to control that. We could drag this down as well too, and it will automatically detect that we are putting a hole in there. If I drag that through far enough, you will see that it actually makes a cut through there and a hole. So that is one of our options. We could also put that dimension in there of the thickness of this, but we don't want to keep duplicating dimensions. We already know this is 0.75. We want this hole to go from this surface down to the bottom surface. So that's really what we want to tell Inventor to do, is go to that bottom surface. So selecting the extrude command, it is going, we have some options here. We have distances that we can put in here. I can go through all. I could select to an object and select the bottom surface, or I could just select this to go through all. So it's going to go through every surface that it intersects with. So if I select all, it will automatically go through there. I do not have to add any dimensions at all. So if I select OK, you will see that that hole has been added. So that's another feature. And if we go back to our bodies here and expand that, we will see our one body that is all all of this all included in one. If I had chosen not to make new bodies in my extrusion, you would see the different bodies in there, but we want to use this, create this all as one body. And one last thing that we're going to put in here, we're going to put a chamfer or a cutout on this surface here. I'm going to create my sketch and select that surface, and I'm going to sketch a line on here. It is snapping to those surfaces, and I'm going to continue to draw my lines so I can create a closed surface. That surface should be closed now, and it's not shaded, so there's a possibility it hasn't been closed. It's closed, and we can, again, we can select, well, I'm going to change the direction of this arrow here, dragging that through there, and I could go right to, I could put a dimension in. Don't want to put 0.75 in. We want to go through all. If we go through all, you will see that it's going to go all the way through. So we don't want it connecting with that surface there. So what we want to do is we want to tell it to stop at this wall here. So we're going to select that surface there. We don't want it to go through both surfaces, and we can select OK. And now our chamfer is made. Another way of making cuts, as opposed to when we made this hole, we could have had a protrusion or a cut. We could actually select that it's going to be a cut. So if I wanted to draw another sketch onto this plane, and I'll make a different chamfer on there, and I'm going to put some dimensions on this one. This one will be, let's make that 60 degrees. So we want to fully constrain that. And we want to draw a line from here to here. And we'll put a dimension on that of 0.5 inches. And our object is fully constrained there. We'll close this profile off, finish our sketch. And we're going to select our extrude again. And when we select that profile, we have an option on here of making a join, which would be adding material. We can select cut. So it's automatically going to be a cut. And we can put to the next surface again, to object. And we are done that cut. And that concludes this video of adding additional features to your base feature.